Okay, so this guy, oh yeah, Mr. Idiot Disease. Do you have an insight how I can combat one thing at a time, brain mechanics? Oh yeah, so I was talking about multitasking mechanics. And yeah, it's interesting. So my point was that old psychologists have this very fixed view that you can only do these things at a time. So I don't know if this is. Oh yeah, let me see. I can move it over. So basically, the way old psychologists talk about, like, if you were in a, let's go back to our RPG game, and you have stimulus one, which is like somebody has low HP, and and then there's stimulus two is so you're scanning for low HP, but you're also scanning for, I don't know. I apologize if this is cringy because I don't really know World of Warcraft, but this guy's talking about raids, so I assume that's what he's talking about. You're looking at people who on the enemy team who like have a full mana bar, which means they're about to drop their like big nuke spell or something. So that's like another stimulus you're looking for. And let's say we're looking for enemy mana. Okay. The old psychologists would say that what's happening is that once you're scanning for these things, but then this whole process up here. Oops, let me move that back over. Of making the discrimination of the stimulus, deciding what to do, and then clicking. And this, by the way, in theory, can get more reflexive with practice. So this is going to be one of the big answers to how do you multitask. You have to practice the components and train so that it becomes more reflexive, which is what like fighters do. And then they start practicing sequences and stuff like that. So what they would say is that decision one regarding the heal spell, and then decision two, you have to schedule this in some way because you can't do these in parallel. Oh, let me move that over more. That this part is parallel, and then in theory you can execute on both if you wanted, or you can execute on this as soon as you want. But sometimes it's depending on what your hand situation is and whether you're using the same finger for the buttons or something. But this can be, in theory, could be parallel. This is what they say. They're basically treating the brain that the decision or central decision making part of tasks, in this case video gaming, is like a serial processor, like a CPU. So that's how they look at it. And then this is interesting because the way you even schedule this is another process in your brain, which I like to refer to as, there's a lot of words for this in the literature. People call this cognitive control. I like to call this meta attention because there's attention in charge of deploying your attention. So in this case, even scheduling this ends up being an extra burden. Say if you're only doing one of these tasks, you only had a heal button and you didn't have to think about anything else. So this axis here is like basically time, and these things happen later and later. The more, because you're stacking more decision making, and then you're even stacking sort of scheduling meta attention costs too. I don't know how clear that was, but the idea is over time you can learn to fuse these. That's one theory, one way of learning how to multitask. It's like chewing bubble gum and walking at the same time. Maybe you you chew to the beat of your walk or something, and you can learn to like fuse the tasks. Just practice in general makes these things more reflexive. So I'm gonna go ahead and answer this guy and move on. But in general, practice makes each task component more reflexive, faster, and less attention demanding. However, human multitasking is let's say significant Like nobody can really figure out how to get around it. Significant bottlenecking phenomena that that we design a lot around. Like for instance, actually, like an example is, sorry, I don't know if you guys can read that. Let me zoom in on this. I don't know how many of you have your screen open, but I'm just gonna, just in case. Yeah. So for instance, Air Force pilots. That's a really cool group of people to study. There was a lab in Utah a long time ago. I forget the lab, but they studied super multitaskers. So they screened like 10,000 people, and they found people that are really good at multitasking. And by chance, like two of them were Air Force pilots, and then he started trying to just study Air Force pilots directly, because the guys in those stealth fighters, they're basically operating like several complex computers while they're hurtling through 3D air. You know, uh, because the aerodynamics of some of those jets are so bad that they require like these large computers to constantly make corrections and stuff like that. And then they're dealing with targeting and evasion systems, and so they're pretty heavily taxed in terms of multitasking. Another branch of the military is these operators in the Navy on Navy ships. So there is a lot of work to try to like design systems or even brain sensing tools to sense how, when people are cognitively overloaded, using non-invasive EEG actually. But let me finish this answer. However, multitasking is a significant bottlenecking phenomenon that we design a lot around. Like what do you call it? Queue buffers and etc. I guess HCI, that human computer in essence, let's say some psychologists, just repeat what I already told you guys, think decision making as a serial process cannot be run in parallel on multiple, I say, event streams. It's not gonna make much sense unless I like really explain it, but we'll do our best here because there's really a lot of questions. E.g. like healing and protective spells. Yeah, on top of serially scheduling, the costs of series, you have the additional costs, which everyone always forgets about, of task scheduling or meta attention, compared to if you were only concerned with a single heal spell. Okay. I am just assuming he's talking about that, but I could be way off. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep this party moving forward.